Whew. All right, guys. I thought video 3 was going to be the last video, but then it cut off, so we got one more to go. I don't even know where I stopped, but yeah, make sure you guys read the slides. I'm going to move on and go forward. Where are we at? We're talking about Russian absolutism, actually. So Tsar. All right, so talk about the peasants. The peasants are always going to be used to sustain the crown, sustain the kingdom, and things like that. We have a series of military victories. We're going to see the conquest of Siberia, and Siberia is going to be full of fur. I'll talk about in a second what happens in Siberia and why people end up coming back. They're going to incorporate Ukraine's fertile southern steppes, and they're going to have victory in war in Sweden. They're going to prompt Peter the Great to build a new capital called St. Petersburg. Get it? St. Petersburg, okay? Peter the Great, and so we'll see that in Russia and other places too. But in Russia, we have Leningrad after Vladimir Lenin. We have Stalingrad after Joseph Stalin, and places like that. So after Peter the Great, we're going to have Catherine the Great is going to continue the expansion of Russian territory, and by the late 1700s, Russian Empire is going to stretch from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea and eastward to Siberia, and I'll show you guys that in a second. So we have the Russian migrating to Siberia. Some of them are going to be serfs who are running away, or the peasants who are running away, trying to get better treatment, but they're not realizing they're running into very, very cold, unforgiving weather. So, or political or religious deportees. So we're going to have many settlers are going to die or try to return because of the hostile climate. It is super cold in Siberia, like ridiculously cold. We're going to see the Great Siberian Post Road, the longest and the ugliest road, and they're going to have to get there on horseback. We'll see in the 1770s, over 100 years after the majority of people are moving into there, we're going to see that they're going to build a road into Siberia being done by slave labor and criminal labor. Here's our map of Russia. We can see where Muscovy started off right here, very small, and expanded into the orange region, expanded into the blue region, expanded into the pink region, eventually goes into the yellow region, and then eventually goes into the brown region, and then starts to come down to the striped areas, and we can see how close they are to Qing, the Qing Empire in Mongolia, and the Manchus and things like that. All right, so now we have a 30 Years' War, so there's going to be a lot of fighting happening in Europe. So 30 Years' War, we're going to see fighting between Protestants and Catholics. That's number one, okay? We're going to see fighting between Catholics. Number two, and we're going to see fighting between other European groups who want their freedom so they can trade and have freedom to trade whoever they want to, okay? So we're going to see the Dutch look for their independence from Spain. We're going to see Catholics, who are Spanish, Austrian, and French all fight. And once again, the Protestants and the Catholics are going to fight. And so we're going to wipe out 1/3 of the German states in population and 2/3 of the rural population. It's a very, very large amount of people. So 40% of people in rural populations and 33% of people in German states are going to lose their lives. We're going to see the Treaty of Westphalia, which is essentially going to say you Catholics and Protestants must live together and figure it out, and then everything else is going to be worked out from there. 30-year war is going to be different because it's going to change how war is fought. So before then, it could just be a haphazard creation of armies, but now we're going to have people who are certified fighters, warriors, or even paid mercenaries who are there to fight. And we're going to see bigger, large-scale, grand-scale campaigns. And we're going to see officers, instead of just having nepotism or heredity or blood on your side, you're also going to have to work for your army or military stripes. We're going to see gunpowder, cannon, and handguns become more standardized and effective during this war, which is going to lead us to this cost right here. It's going to cost more in terms of money and financial things, as well as destruction because of all these things that we're using. And we're going to lose a lot more human beings. And not just people fighting in the war, but we're going to lose a lot of civilians as well. All right, so despite the war and Europeans saw commercial expansion, I'm just going to walk around and make sure this video is still recording so I'm not talking for no reason at all. It looks like we're all good. All right, so we have the economic, Europeans are going to see commercial expansion. The Spanish economy is going to suffer greatly due to the 30 Years' War. They're going to try to offset that damage by using silver from other places, but the silver is not going to bring in enough money to offset the cost of the war. The Northern European economy is going to gain more than the South, and we'll see how the Dutch are going to modernize different things. And there it is. The Dutch are going to lead the way in Northern Europe commercial dynamism with innovative commercial practices like shipping and banking. So we're going to see our first banks coming together where we can loan out money and loan out resources to make sure that everything gets what they need. And we're also going to see the shipping costs are going to be lowered because of the Dutch's way of trading. Make sure you guys check that out on page 509. Very, very important. Okay? All right, so after that, we have England and France also emerged as commercial powerhouses because of their aggressive mercantilism and protectionist policies in the 17th century. So mercantilism, I'm going to use the colony that I have stolen, that I have captured, and I'm going to use that to benefit my homeland or my home country. So we're using all the wealth and resources that we get from these new lands to essentially support our homeland of England and France, okay? And we're going to see economic development extend to the countryside with breakthroughs in food production. So food production, we have changes that are going to lead to more people being fed. We're also going to bring in more of these crops, which is going to lead to a population growth and expansion. So we're going to see English agriculture become more commercialized with the enclosure movement. The enclosure movement is basically like serfdom, like feudal system, like all these different things that we already know about. So we're going to have a rich landowner who's going to control the land, and that land is going to be basically doled out to peasants or to serfs or to people in the enclosure movement, and they're going to be forced to farm. And those farming goods are going to actually have the ability to go further and wider into more distant places than previous stuff before. Okay. Whew, so close, so close. All right, so European monarchs are going to attempt to centralize authority with varying success. So we're going to see in France what happens when he tries to become an absolute monarch. An absolute monarch means somebody who only, they have the divine right to be the king, but also you're only answering to God. You're not answering to any other person other than God when you're an absolute monarch. So we're going to see that patronage networks are going to ultimately link to the king. So any kind of money coming in is going to ultimately come into the king. We're going to see Louis XIII is going to build the Palace of Versailles. So Louis XIII created the absolute monarchy system. Louis XIV is going to build Versailles. So Louis XIV built Versailles, Louis XV enjoyed Versailles, and Louis XVI died for Versailles. And all of these Louis were allowed to have absolute control based on what Louis XIII did. So Louis XIV's father, Louis XV's grandfather, and Louis XVI's great-grandfather allowed for them to flourish in France, and eventually it's going to lead to the downfall in France with Bastille Day. They're going to provide a model of rule for other European dynasties, although power was not in fact absolute. So we'll see what's going to happen in England coming up next, but England is not going to have such an easy route to absolute monarchy. So here we go with England. I'm going to do a video check just one more time because I don't have time to record this video for a fourth time. All right, so England would have achieved absolute monarchy, but they differed from France in that English Parliament remained an important force. So English Parliament is going to be comparable to our modern day Congress. England still has a Parliament today, and we still have a Congress as well. And the Congress basically and the Parliament have the ability to raise taxes to pay for things. So if you're the monarch or if you're the president and you want something paid for, you got to go to Parliament or you got to go to Congress to get that money raised. Without them, you can't do these things, which is why the absolute monarchy system is not going to be so prevalent in England during this time period. So we're going to see tensions between Puritans and Anglicans are going to result in the Protestant Puritan Parliament beheading Anglican King Charles I. We're going to see conflicts continue between aspiring absolutist Anglican throne and Puritan Parliament, culminating in the Glorious Revolution between 1688 and 1689. I'm sorry I'm talking so fast, but I'm so tired I want to get over with this stuff right now. King James II is going to flee England. He's going to Parliament is going to crown William of Orange and Protestant wife Mary onto the throne, So the Glorious Revolution establishes the principles that English monarchs must rule in conjunction with the Parliament. So basically, after this revolution happens, you have to use Congress, or Parliament, in order to get money or in order to work or do anything in Congress, or in England, Mercantile wars. All right, blah, 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 blah. Most important part of this is the 7 Years' War. Okay, 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War. It's going to be the culmination of European rivalries fought in America, Europe, and in Asia. So out of all this, the 7 Years' War, Britain is the winner. Britain wins everything. But the people who lose the war the most are going to be the indigenous people. So please remember that after this happens, the British people are in control pretty much of the New World and things like that, while the indigenous people everywhere are going to lose. So previously, indigenous people had the ability to put France and Spain against England, or England against France, or England against Spain, and make them fight what they wanted to do. After this happens, the British Empire is number one. So no matter who they go to, Britain is still number one. And finally, all right, economic integration intensified between 1600 and 1750, connecting the world with commodities and long-distance commercial networks. And economy integration and consumer opportunities came at a heavy price for Indians and Africans, colonizing, exploitation, expulsion, decimation, and slavery. Sugar and silver from the New World transformed global trading networks, both enriching and stabilizing regions. Safavids and Ming dynasty collapsed. Spanish, Ottomans, and Mughal dynasty survived, but faced increasing pressure from aggressive rivals. And Japan, Russia, and England emerged as the world stage. But even for these new regimes, we still have conflict happening, and we'll still continue to have conflict happening. And we're done! Oh my God, we're done.